Coming up on Smart Tech today, Matthew Cassinelli and I talk about everything in the world of virtual assistants. There's a lot from Amazon's virtual assistant, as well as the Google Assistant, and a little bit about what's going on over at Apple. Plus, Philips Hue's HDMI sync box and the Logi Pop. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Welcome to Smart Tech Today, where we explain the exciting, dynamic, and, well, sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. I am Mikah Sargent.
And as usual, I'm Matthew Cassinelli.
Today he is, folks. He is Matthew Cassinelli, but not Matty C.
YouTube star.
YouTube star Matty C, world-renowned, beats worldwide renowned YouTube star Matty C. We have quite a bit of news to talk about across the whole ecosystem. Ecosystem? How do you say it?
I guess, well, if that's just a really bad tie-in to the first topic, then yes, ecosystem.
You know what? I'm going to roll with it. That is exactly what I was going for there. Yes, indeed. We thought we'd start off with Alexa this week, Amazon's assistant. And I saw this fly by. Amazon says, you know what? Guess what we're going to do? We are going to make Amazon Music free for certain things, and it's going to be an ad-supported streaming service similar to what Spotify offers, which is interesting. It makes me curious whether or not this is, like, what is the better play? Is the play to sort of exist as a premium stream where the only way to go about joining is to pay, or to offer this free and then keep your fingers crossed that people dislike ads enough that they will eventually upgrade to the premium version?
Yeah, I mean, I'll confess I didn't know it wasn't free, but that's also because I've just had Prime since before it even existed. So in my experience, it has, like, you get it free with Prime already. Mm-hmm. But that does make sense because who else is going to, unless you already have Prime or you already own an Echo, who would ever sign up for it without ever testing it, kind of thing. Yeah. But I mean, now that I'm saying that, that's exactly what Apple Music is like. I guess they have the trial.
Yeah.
So
they give you a trial.
That makes sense. That is fairly significant. But it does make sense. It's like, if you have it for free on your Echo, why can't you play it on your phone also? It's just sort of odd limitation there.
Yeah, and there's a difference between the one where it's just offering. So if you own Alexa devices, then you have access to free Amazon Music playlists and you have access to free Amazon Music stations. So it's a little bit like Pandora in that sense, where the streaming music deal that is in place basically treats it like radio. And so you don't have as much choice over what music you're listening to. But as a Amazon Prime subscriber, you could push that a step further and actually get full-on Amazon Music access. So it's a little interesting seeing how they are, like you said, sort of bringing people in. But I don't know. I have Amazon Music obviously available on the different Echoes in my house, but I quickly linked Spotify because the playlists are, Spotify is what I use other than Apple Music to listen to music. And I've gone so far as to, because I play, and please don't laugh at me, there's a reason for this. I play music for my dogs whenever I'm gone. And he laughed. I gotta go. I'm done. Round it out, close it down. We're done. Okay, they're not turning off the lights, so I guess we have to keep going. Ooh, DDP, yeah. For the folks out there who are listening and not watching, Matthew Cassinelli just had a nice sip of Diet Dr. Pepper, which is not a sponsor of this week's episode of Smart Tech Today, but is a very delicious beverage.
Although if the doctor wants to sponsor us, I'm
yes,
open.
Please, doctor, do sponsor as I sip this coffee. Okay, I feel better now. What I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by laughter was that my dogs are listening to every single sound that exists on the planet at all times. And so they are hyper vigilant. And the best way to help them be at ease when I'm not there when they are less hypervigilant, is to play some music in the background. And so basically their little brains focus on that sound and don't pay as much attention to the sounds coming from outside, like the delivery truck that when it stops, it makes that honking sound. Exactly. And they have that is a trigger for them. Boy, howdy. So by having the music playing, it is not doing that. So I use my Echo to do that. Well, one of them, the old school tower, and I say, play some classical music, and so that plays while they're gone. So they're also getting smarter during the day. But I went as far as to create, to use Spotify's family subscription so that I could create a secondary account that is just for my Echo devices so that those can play even while I am gone and using Spotify, because the way that it's set up to be able to stream to multiple devices makes it so that if you're logged into the same account on multiple devices that are streaming, then it's like, oh, do you want to keep playing this on the Echo or do you want to switch it to your phone? No, that one needs to keep playing all on its own, and then I want to be able to stream as well on my personal device. So I had to create a secondary account, which I think is just like my name plus Echo or whatever. So that was.
I want to know what yours. I want to know what your Spotify replay is for the dogs. Like,
oh my God, it's all just like Stravinsky and.
I was going to say, what kind of music do you play?
It's just classical music.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah.
Not like Beyonce throughout the house.
No, God, see. And I would never play pop music because that's so all over the place that I don't think it would provide that sort of level experience because I don't want them to get all freaked out whenever, I don't know, Lizzo comes on and there's like bass dropping and they're like, what is happening? So yeah, I just play classical.
Nice.
Now,
well, I thought this was an interesting, like, also lead into their oh wait, did I put the wrong link into the show doc? Oops, I might have, but they have Amazon HD now.
Yes.
So you can get like high quality Amazon.
Yeah, so there are two versions of this, along with the just typical HD offering, which is, of course, like Tidal. It offers a lossless, high quality, don't quote me on that. I don't know if it's lossless, but a very, very, very high quality version of the music, as close to the original as they're offering. And so you can get, really top quality if you're an audiophile. You can get some really top quality streaming going on. They also offer, though, a special selection of songs that are purposely tailored for the Echo Studio, which has this new 3D. It's a little bit like Dolby. What is Dolby Atmos? I think is the one that shoots sound at the ceiling. But the HomePod does the similar. It has the shaped horns, so it can shoot the sound out at different sides. Yes, however, that is the techniques are a little. The process is a little different. The techniques are a little different. With HomePod's version, it is, regardless of what room it's in, it's trying to provide the best sound available. That's the whole point of providing this sound. With the Echo Studio and this new special feature, it is not trying to provide the best sound possible in whatever room it happens to be in. Instead, it is quite literally trying to sort of recreate. It's like the fake surround sound thing for televisions, but it actually works a little bit better. The sad thing is, recently we had Daniel Bader on Tech News Weekly. He's the editor-in-chief of Android Central. And that's not the sad part. That was great. Loved having him on. But the sad thing is that feature is enabled by default, at least during the review period, this new 3D sound experience. And I need to remember the name now because, let's see, Echo Studio.
I just see 3D audio.
I think that might be what it's called.
Yeah. Also, just the headline I was mistaking was that they got a bunch more tracks into this 3D part of their HD subscription, which is cool.
Yeah. So
Warner Music. Yeah.
So the normal with the ones that are purposely tuned to the 3D audio, those are great. But by default, there's a feature enabled in audio called upmixing, 3D upmixing. And what 3D upmixing does is it tries to turn normal music into this 3D audio version. And Daniel said that it just absolutely ruined so much music. Yeah. He was listening to it and he's like, wow, the Echo Studio is crap. and I'm not, there's no way that I'm going to be able to give this a good review. And then as he was going through doing his review, he went into the settings, found this, turned it off, and like, oh, this is so much better than I thought it was going to be. So hopefully that by the time they actually ship this thing for everyday folks, that they will have that, disabled as a default, that you can decide to turn it on, or that it'll get better. It'll be better. But yeah, I think that that's cool that they're adding more music to that. I'm really looking forward to hearing what it sounds like when it's working properly, because it's supposed to sort of like recreate as if you were in the room listening to an orchestra or something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe the dogs will appreciate it.
Like the HomePod doesn't, I don't think I even like, now that you're saying it, I like forget that the HomePod does this, but I do remember when I first got it, hearing just like, because I play the drums, and so like you can kind of tell where the sound should be coming from depending on which side and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, I can hear that snare on the right or like in the space around you. But that stuff it's like, I mean, one thing it's really hard to demo or explain to anyone because you have to be there. Yeah. And it depends on the room too, but
absolutely,
that stuff is cool. The other thing I put in the doc for today was just I noticed The Verge is starting a big guide to Amazon. I'm going to say Echo, but they have the assistant name in there. But it's just like how to use skills, how to do basic stuff, all collected in one spot. So I thought that was worth linking to because I'm probably going to use it to do some more stuff with the skills.
Yeah, because I think that right now, you go trolling through the support documentation, spelunking through the support documentation that Amazon has, and it does get a little confusing, a little difficult to find some things. It's easy if you're going for one specific thing, but if you want to maybe learn multiple things, it can be very difficult to find what you're looking for. Yeah. And so I like that they're sort of trying to drop everything in one place, that this is a page where the people like us who know a little bit more about this stuff can go, let me just send this guide to the person who needs it, and that it's all right there.
And I totally didn't do this on purpose, but now that I think about it, Apple does have the Shortcuts user guide, which is, I would say, like 75%, or I haven't actually compared, but it's like the documentation that I wrote for Workflow before we got acquired by Apple. And so like you can go through Apple's website and look at a lot of like example stuff that just helps you get way further, especially with the Shortcuts app specifically versus the Siri Shortcuts stuff, because it's just like, I think I have examples of how to make API requests with JSON data, which is very, very intense stuff.
And that's in this Shortcuts user guide? Version 3.2?
Yeah, at the end. But most of that was like my last project right before we got acquired. I was like, shoot, we have to actually tell people how this works before it disappears. So
I just added that to the document so we can make sure to link to that. And when you have a chance, of course, have a click on there and make sure that it is indeed the right version. It's funny, the other day, someone, whenever I was explaining what I do for a living, which of course is still very difficult, and sometimes I say, I don't even know myself really, but when I was explaining what I do, and of course talked about iOS today, they were like, oh, So you can tell me what that Shortcuts app on my phone is for. And I had this moment where I was like, in my head I was thinking, what do I say right now? And I thought, I could, but I know someone who'd be able to tell you more. But instead I went for, yeah, I could. So that,
believe in yourself, Mikah.
Thank you. I think I've got the basics, but if they get really into it, then I guess I can send them your way for the next level of training. But yeah, cool that guide is available, and it is separate from. To be clear, there's a support document that Apple has available that's just called Use the Shortcuts app on your iPhone or iPad. And that is not the same thing as the full Shortcuts user guide, which is a separate link, which, as I mentioned, is included in the show notes.
That was deep. Wow. That humidifier has been working for you.
It has been working so well. In fact, I need to refill it because it's empty after a good week of use. All right, let's move on to the Google Assistant. That's how you say Google Assistant in French. Did you know that? It's not.
Now I want to look that up.
It's not how you say it.
I mean, honestly, it's like probably pretty close.
French is a perplexing language. Remember when we were trying to figure out, was that this show? We were trying to figure out who was the French leader, like if they were the prime minister or if
I think
else.
that was Germany. We couldn't remember.
Oh, right. It was Germany.
Because of the chancellor.
So confusing.
Come here for your latest, I don't know, international news.
International political leader know-how. That's what this show is all about. This is fun. Spotify adds personalized Google Assistant commands for recommended music. So it's essentially what they've done on iOS, correct? I mean, you have your integrations with Siri, and now there are integrations for the Google Assistant on Spotify so that you can gain access to and control your stuff. So you can say, hey, boo-boo, recommend some music. And if you've got Spotify connected to your Google Home device, then it will play some recommended music. Or in fact, it'll say like, hey, would you like to listen to this? Blah, 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 blah. And then you can choose, or you can say, hey, boo-boo, play some recommended music. And then, of course, that will give you the actual music to play. And if you do or don't like something, then you can say, can you try something different? Or play something else. So I like this. I think that any way that we can sort of cut out all of these extra snippets that we need to add to make this stuff work properly, or extra levels of digging in, is always a good thing.
And I actually, for my HomePod, because Apple's had something like this for a while, that's like the primary way that I actually use it. Unless I specifically want to listen to an album, most of the time I do just say play something, because just having it recommended, it's like that's the point of this service. I don't want to make that decision every single time. One thing I know for Apple's is that saying play something else will change it. Playing something different will like play something different than I'm normally used to. And so it will actually like give you more variety if you say something different. So I'm curious if this does the same thing.
I didn't know about that. That's kind of neat.
It's like it'll play something. It's like a semantics difference, but it's just like whichever word you use actually might have a different effect.
Which, to be fair, if I was DJing a party and somebody comes up to me and they're like, hey, loving the music, bro, but like, can you play something else? And then I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I'll play another Death Cab for Cutie song. But they're like, man, I just need you to play something different. Then you go from like, I don't know, the Shins to Lizzo. And so, yeah, like even with a human, there's a difference in those two words. So I kind of like that it's trying to match the DJ and drunken patron experience there with your different assistants. That's kind of neat.
I think you should have moved to LA to become an actor, not a podcaster.
Acting!
Also, now that I think about it, those were very millennial examples. And earlier when you were talking about, I just use my Spotify account instead of the Amazon Music, I was like, that's totally because you're a youth. And I guarantee there's a lot of people out there who still don't even know what Spotify is or something like that. So Amazon Music's a little closer to home.
Not only is it a youth thing, it is a privileged thing too, that I do have the choice between multiple streaming services, that I'm able to afford the ridiculousness that is my music streaming way of existing, which is to have access to multiple streaming services. And that's something I recognize, that whenever if someone were to come to me and say, which streaming service should I use, then that's a question that I'm going to consider piece by piece, versus me going, you know what you should do? Just subscribe to them all, which is a foolish thing that I understand.
I definitely don't.
Yeah.
I guess maybe technically, I'm not sure with Spotify. I turn Spotify on and off depending
on what?
Kind of like if I'm experimenting with stuff or trying to do, because I am very heavily in the shortcuts and realm. So that does a lot with Apple Music that I can't do with Spotify, but if I could, I would.
Do you subscribe to Hulu?
No.
Oh.
Do they do like a deal with it?
Yeah, I think you get Spotify Premium for free if you're a Hulu subscriber, if I remember correctly.
That's smart.
Hulu and Spotify. Yeah. Oh, no. if you get, I don't think it goes both ways. It's if you get Spotify. Oh, now I can't remember. One or the other. It's if you have one, then you can get the other. And I think that's fantastic. And I think
I did originally get it. I mean, I had Spotify before Apple Music existed, and I got a bunch of people onto Spotify, and then I was like, well, I want to use it with my voice. So Apple Music is like the only solution really right now.
Right.
And that has been true for years and years, but it's not really been like something like the HomePod didn't exist. So it wasn't totally worth it for a lot of people, I think.
Coincidentally,
but I was like training myself.
Coincidentally, Years and Years is one of my favorite bands. But, that's an aside. So let's talk about now, too. This, I think, is fascinating. I love the idea of being able to have like a start to my day or a middle of the day check-in with my assistant to see what's going on. And Google Assistant has a feature now that offers a personalized audio news feed. So you say, hey, boo-boo, play me the news. And by the way, did you know that there's a Yogi Bear movie coming out?
I did not.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
We'll have to review it on this show.
Yeah. Folks loved how last time we talked about I can't even remember what it was now. Something at the beginning of the show. They're like, is this smart tech or is this? But listen, it was streaming across our set-top boxes and our devices, so it's smart.
Yeah, I see. I like the shows.
But anyway, Google Assistant, play me the news, not play me to the news, which is the typo in this Engadget article. And essentially, it makes a personalized playlist of, instead of music, it does it of news. And I love this idea. If we're going to go personalized every aspect of what I can gain access to. And while we're working on this sort of voice-first world that we're living in currently, this Voice OS kind of platform, let's make as much into audio as we possibly can and make it so that when I do have whatever devices are in my ears, I can listen to the news for the day. I can listen to... I do wonder, though, do we think that a world in which we are controlling everything audio-wise, or voice-wise, voice and audio interactions, what effect does that have on reading ability?
Yeah, I mean, everything in moderation, I'd say, like being able to, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it detracts from it directly. Like if you only ever listen to stuff and never, I'm pretty sure people are still reading with their eyes, like on a daily basis, maybe not like deep books and stuff like that. That's sort of, I feel like the internet plays more of a role in that than audio news. Cause
that's true.
I mean, to get all like philosophical or whatever, like stories were originally communicated through the spoken word and stuff like that.
Point. So that's a really good point.
Although
right,
we
got me there.
We were just Neanderthals then, so maybe writing it down. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we're Neanderthals now.
Sometimes I feel like it. I especially feel like a Neanderthal when I start to get the spinning wheel of death on my Mac in the middle of a show.
Oh, wow.
But don't worry, folk. Nope, still doing it. Okay, well, I don't know what's coming next, Matthew. You tell me.
I'm going to add this in too, because along the same lines,
sneaker.
Spotify also has like this isn't through the Smart Assistant itself, but they have like the playlist where you can, it'll like auto generate podcast episodes for you in a playlist on a daily basis. So you could also trigger that after you're done with your news. So
yeah, we were just
I don't
talking
have
about that on iOS.
I don't
today.
listen to beside like, I think the habit part is an interesting thing, because even if something like, I mean, I guess people who listen to watch the morning news and listening to it is similar, but like I tend to listen to a podcast or like music that, I mean, playlists, I guess, change often, but just like that much audio changing throughout your day is not something that I don't want it in that short of like bundles. It's like 5 minutes of news, then switch on to a new topic. I guess now that I'm saying it, that's what our podcast is. No, but it's like different news sources entirely. It's like, here's the news train, and then I guess Google's example was like, here's updates on the train and then analysis of last night game and the market update. So you just have to be a business person who likes sports.
Yummo. That's my brand for sure.
We like sports and we don't care who knows.
Yeah. I love it all.
Do you know that Lonely Island skit?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
They're just like guys who are like, we totally are into sports. Basketball, hockey. It's like,
oh, that's great. I'm gonna have to watch that one.
Yeah, I'll send you a link.
Please do. Thank you, Kevin, for that. Again, I have to say, if you are out there listening to this and you haven't tuned in live, of course, we do lead the show with audio. Audio is the way that we publish the show right now. But despite that, we still make the video experience fun and fancy-free. So it is worth tuning in live and checking out the show in video form, even without the published version of that going out. So yeah, come hang out with us whenever you have the opportunity to do so. In fact, that's what Matthew and I tried to schedule the show regularly for a time when we were hoping that more folks would be available, like after work instead of during work hours, which is when many of our shows are live.
Plus, you would get to see Micah's wonderful light purple, and your sweater is so stylish. That's why it's like,
thank you.
You just get to see how fancy we look.
Fancy lads.
See my messed up hair.
Let's see. What is next? So, Google Assistant launches My Storytime feature for families to read together when apart. This, again, there's a lot of bah humbug, boo-hoos, and womp-womps about smart tech, but these kinds of things of giving people ways to connect when they're apart, of bringing people together, of encouraging reading, the thing that I was just talking about being worried about, all of that is very cool. I don't care who's doing it, and in this case, it's Google who's working on this, and so you get to have story time. It says 68% of mothers and 45% of fathers say they participate in their young child's bedtime routine nightly. For those who can't control whether they are home or not, Google says this is why My Storytime is here, so that you can enable playback of pre-recorded stories. I'm going to call my mom after the show is over and have her do a story time for me.
Give you bedtime stories.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's a great idea.
When I went to college, before I went to college, I went to the store and bought one of those books where you can record the reading of the book, and had my mom record the book for me. I still have it to this day. So now I'm gonna have to get her to read a story to me. This is neat, right? I mean, you
yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Is like, at first, my cold, broken heart is like, tell stories. But then I instantly, like, when you go to the page and you just, I don't know, I was like, this is one of those like great Google commercials where it makes you like, it starts off and the kid's like telling the story, and by the end you're like, I gotta use this. But it's nice. It's just like little greetings, and I think it sounds nice. I mean, I'm sure neither of us have children, so that's definitely not as strong of an appeal, but it is like, I can see how this sounds like, why would you not? And it sounds wonderful.
And it seems to go a little bit past this. So I've logged into the page, and it says there's a page called Greetings and Instructions. And it says, first, let's record a few greetings and instructions for your listeners to hear your voice as they navigate your stories. Does that mean that I could put out stories that people could then, regardless of who they are? I'm curious about this. Matthew, I might be reading you a bedtime story.
My God.
We'll see how this goes. Yeah, we're going to try it for sure. I'm going to just downsize that page so I can go back to it.
I'm totally down
Good
for that.
evening, Matthew Cassinelli.
I don't know if I can play that in my bedroom before I go to bed.
It's time for bed. No, you'll just
my
have to do it.
My girlfriend is like, oh my Lord, why is your podcast co-host?
You'll have to do it on the couch, whenever you're kicked out to sleep on the couch. No, I'm not going to get into it. I almost made a reference to The Office, but that is not this podcast, so I won't do that. I think this is great. Again, this is another way that we are looking at the benefit of smart tech, because I think I've said this before on this show, but there are times, mostly whenever someone is just asking me, please, I need to make a phone call with you. Let's talk on the phone. And I am cringing my heart out because I hate talking on the phone. And I have this moment where I'm like, there was a time when you could take not a shuttle, I can't think of the word now, a carriage across the entire United States, and you had no phone, and maybe the Pony Express was there to deliver letters, but maybe they weren't, and nobody would know where you were or what was going on, and then eventually you'd get to your destination, and then you'd send a letter, and then they'd know like 2 months later that you made it safely. And man, now we all live in this instant world where we think that we need to be able to text each other at all times, and we're driving and texting at the same time, and what a world it was. And so there are times where I get a little jaded about the fact that everybody thinks that they need to be connected at all times. But at the same time, when these things come along, it's like there is a beauty in our ability to connect across long distances. And we've seen, pretty much many of our modern advances in technology and health and other fields have come because of the fact that we are able to connect with so many folks across the world. So there's good and there's bad. Basically what I'm saying is don't call me ever.
This does feel like I almost wish this was just a skill and not from Google. Like it does just start to feel more like, so you can buy this Google Home so we can listen in your house versus we actually want to, I don't know. But that's again, just like the cynical side of me talking, because I guarantee there's parents at Google that are going to use this, and that's why they built it. So it's always maybe colored based off of how you're feeling in the moment.
True. Just like life.
I'm hungry. Everybody is evil.
Yes. Oh, can I? This is not that podcast. I think
we've
either.
already talked about that. But
I do. Well, I'm just saying, the level of the things that go wrong in my life. Not wrong. The things that are making me upset in a given moment, and how often that's related to the fact that I haven't eaten, is 1-to-1. Don't do the math on that. I don't know stats.
Well, that's my productivity is I'm like, why do I feel so tired and I don't feel like working? And then I look at my body and I'm in a chair, reclined with my feet up and haven't moved in 2 hours. And it's it's if only I had a better productivity system.
Oh, right.
No, go stand up and drink a glass of water.
Love it. Love it.
This is life advice with Mikah and Matthew.
Indeed. Do you feel more ready to take on control of your existence? Well, come along on this 12-step journey. Starting with step 1.
Through your Google Assistant.
Through your Google Assistant. What is Duplex on the web?
Yes, it can't help you with your personal problems, but it can help you buy movie tickets now. So you have been able to use Google Assistant to get movie tickets, but they're basically now actually rolling out the Duplex part of it. So it's using their AI fancy feature to navigate the website and sort of bring up the just the parts that you want as opposed to you having to do it on your own. So
yeah, and this Google Duplex was the way that they showed this off originally was this fancy technology that was going to give me everything that I wanted in life, where again, why make phone calls when you don't have to use the phone? And so Google Duplex, I think if I remember correctly, the example that they showed was scheduling a hair appointment or something like that. And so you say, yeah. And this is what I want for the future of smart technology. I want to be able to say, hey, boo-boo, schedule me a hair appointment for later this week, and also add a conditioning treatment to that. And also ask about the conditioning treatments. And then Siri goes and calls my hairdresser, not only schedules the appointment based on looking at my calendar to see what I have available, but then also goes and says, we're wondering how much it costs for the hair treatment, the hair conditioning treatment. And then I don't know how it would pop up, if it would be in a notification or if it would be a message sent to me, but to have it fly back and say, okay, a hair conditioning treatment is $75. And then I can say, I actually do want to get those. So it calls the place back and is and add a conditioning treatment to that. That is, yes, chef's kiss all over. That would be wonderful. And so I'm liking the fact that we are continuing to see improvements in Duplex. And I know there's a lot of poo-pooing about this technology in particular and sort of sketched out stuff about, talking to robots. But that is the moment where we, Matthew, always talk about sort of pulling back and think about this tech, not for me, who just doesn't like to take phone calls, but for someone who actually struggles to be able to place a phone call, or who is in a position where they're unable to, or even have empathy for the busy parent who is trying to get their kids to school, but still needs to make sure that later in the day they can go pick up the birthday cake from the baker for their kid's birthday or whatever. This kind of technology that enables us to do the important things in life and not have to worry about the rigmarole of the less important things, I think is great.
Minutia.
Yeah, that is a better word than the one I used. I appreciated that.
I have rigmarole.
That's why you said minutia.
Yeah. Also, I guess Assistant used to only work with Fandango, so now it does work with a lot of cinemas and ticketing services, it makes sense for something like this because it's a pretty like standardized. I mean, I wouldn't say standardized, but for at least East website, they have like a standard way you access the information. So it's basically just reverse engineering their UI back to their database just to get all the information out. So it makes sense, especially I want to see them expand to other services. And so like really figuring this one out is probably a good basis for that.
Yeah. Very good. Very, very good. All right, let's move on to our next topic here. My Mac once again it does not like Engadget pages for some reason. And it just so happens that we've got a lot of Engadget links in the doc this week. It's time to talk about what Apple and Siri are up to. And this feature, first of all, we're talking about Apple Maps. And I have to tell you, moving from Missouri to California and visiting at the time, these features, even when I moved, these features were still only available sort of south of where we are here in Petaluma, we being the people in this studio, not you.
Yeah, I got it.
And so with that, I would go down to Silicon Valley like a few weekends, basically, over the course of my time being here. And while I was there, I was loving the new features that Apple introduced for Apple Maps that include stop signs and turn signal, not light signals, but traffic signals, and all of those different features that make the navigation even better. So it's gone so far as to like know where parking lots are. And there was one time where it said, you go down past the Wendy's and it's on your right. And so even awesome. Knowing those locations, basically speaking like a human would when they're giving directions, that is certainly how I think about navigation. It's on this street to the north. I think of it in terms of different locations that are around it. And all of that is to say that eventually these features did come to Petaluma, so Apple's been working on spreading them, but now it's available in more than half of the US. So you may be seeing this pop up if you use Apple Maps as your navigation system.
Yeah. Here, I got the list. It's Colorado, Utah, Nevada, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, Washington, West Virginia, Ohio, and Michigan. And, Illinois and Indiana. And this is mean, but this Digital Trends article has Utah and Oregon spelled wrong. It's Oregon and then Utah.
Utah? Yes, that 51st state, Utah.
But yeah, this has been, the reason I wanted to bring it up is because of CarPlay and just like the parity between, I don't know if I would call it parity. I don't know if I haven't actually compared them, so I should probably do that before I make that claim. But just Google Maps versus Android or Apple Maps and driving. And I haven't even done, it's a little hard to test Android Auto because I'd have to get a second car.
That's
but
no
it
big
is
deal.
Like that type of stuff is so nice. Just like having the, like knowing that a stop sign is coming and that's where you need to turn. Or, you and I tested the share ETA feature earlier this year. So it is wild that, Apple literally like fired one of their executives because Apple Maps was so bad and he refused to
acknowledge it. Or,
exactly. Basically, this was like a couple years or like 5 years ago now. So it is sort of wild that it's 2019 and we're just now getting something that's a higher quality version. But especially it's like it is for a lot of people wasn't even feasible to use before. So hopefully that is a little bit different because nobody likes to. There was definitely a time where pretty consistently I was like, I can't use Apple Maps because I just I can't trust it. And being able to trust that you're going to the right place or something like that when you first put it in is definitely important.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I use that share ETA feature all the time, and I love these improvements that continue to be made to Apple Maps. And so now I at least have not needed to decide between using Google Maps or Apple Maps, where before that may have been a thing. For me now, I can pretty much count on Apple Maps as my platform of choice. I do like some of the features that Waze offers, particularly when it comes to it being aware of traffic. And there's this feature called planned trips. And when I am feeling particularly, what is the word? When I feel like I don't want to show up fashionably late and I'd rather show up precisely on time, I like to use Waze's planned trip features to essentially tell me, hey, based on what traffic looks like on average, you should leave at this time instead
that's nice.
of the normal just using travel time. So what I do is I set that up in Waze, and when I get the notification saying you should probably leave in 10 minutes, then I go get in my car and I use Apple Maps for the navigation. So Waze is just sort of my notification for transferring. A wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. I'm a wizard, Harry.
That's awesome.
Oh, wonderful. So I think these improvements to Apple Maps, they make me happy, and they are a win for anyone who does that.
Now that I think about it, I do have I want to use that for the Waze scheduling feature for next time I go to Twit, because you guys are just far enough and there's just enough. Like if there's no traffic, it takes me an hour, but if there was traffic, it could take me an hour and a half or something. So that's good. But I also want to bring the Samsung phone that I'm testing home to Portland over Thanksgiving break and maybe test out the mapping capabilities a little bit more.
That'll be interesting. And I like we talked about testing out Google Maps' version of the ETA stuff. And we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, and it was fine. It was good. And I like that you can see the battery level, as I mentioned. Now, this I have been using HomeKit cameras for pretty much as long as they've existed. HomeKit-enabled cameras for pretty much as long as they've existed. And I like having them all available in my Home app. And finally, Apple added, I shouldn't say finally, because this wasn't necessarily a feature that I ever saw coming, and more than me not expecting it to come was the fact that it is something that the companies, manufacturers are actually supporting, which is kind of bizarre to me, because this is one of the biggest moneymakers, is HomeKit Secure Video.
Yes.
Companies make a lot of money off of charging you a subscription fee for your videos to be stored on their servers and to be analyzed by their servers for notifications like, oh, I think there's a person at your door, or there's a dog running around in front of this camera, or what have you. So the fact that Logitech especially has jumped on board to say, you know what, we're going to offer HomeKit Secure Video. We're going to let Apple store your video footage and do localized analysis of your video is pretty doggone cool. Now, what's interesting is that there are still some features that folks want that are missing currently.
Yeah. I don't know. I was listening to the Connected podcast on Relay FM, and they all had a pretty bad time with this, where, I mean, one of the weird things in general, and I'll talk about this later with my project of the week, is I'm not sure if this is specific to Logitech or other companies too, but when you add something like that into HomeKit, it gets removed from their own app. And so I think it does reduce some of the functionality, but basically a lot of those guys were having a total mess of this, where it basically was notifying you for every single movement that it saw, regardless of whether you were actually gone or not. And even when like one of them was home, it said like somebody's arrived, and they were like, no. And also we're at home, so that shouldn't be going off. So I do think this doesn't seem like it's fully recommendable yet, which is a shame also. I mean, maybe hopefully before Christmas, because it's like, this is Black Friday season and I'm interested in buying one of these, but it did seem like HomeKit Secure Video is like a really great feature, but rough out of the gate right now, just as a warning.
Yeah, this is interesting because a non-HomeKit Secure Video camera, I have one of those. It's a HomeKit-enabled camera, but it does not offer HomeKit Secure Video. And right now it is set up in my garage. And I have the option of doing the location stuff within the Home app. The camera is an Omna 360 camera, and I have it set up so that it only notifies me of movement or whatever it happens to sense when I am not at my home. And you can go into more detail with that on what gets shown, what doesn't get shown, what is notified, what isn't. And so this is a little bizarre that in theory, more robust control over your HomeKit enabled camera does not also offer the option to use those same notification features. I'm going to have to look into this myself. Not that it's necessarily going to make a difference, but I have spent a lot of time in HomeKit and, of course, like scrubbing through lots of support documentation and talking to a few people who know a thing or two about the HomeKit stuff.
Calling up Tim Apple?
It may be that I call up Uncle Tim and say, hey, good morning. I was wondering about whether we can fix this because it's silly.
He's like, hello, this is Tim, which he always does on the analyst calls. And I guess they're always like, yeah, we know. We know who it is.
You. We know. And then one day it's going to be, hello, this is Luca. And it's like, oh, where's Tim? Oh, no, he's going to be on second today. So yeah, this is something I need to look into a little bit more because that doesn't make sense to me.
All that. It's a little, I think it's like you get the trade-off of not paying $200 a year to just back up your video. So that's like the main benefit is that it's through your iCloud system. But it's a rough type of thing to integrate. And Apple's vision of what smart tech should be doesn't always align with what manufacturers does.
Absolutely.
So, even the Home app or HomeKit has like built-in native capabilities that aren't even available in the Home app itself. Like third-party, there's an app I think it's called Home Plus 4 maybe, and it has like native HomeKit features that you can't even see in the Home app, but you can turn on and stuff like. So it's a little. I don't know if they're just like gonna make a splash about it one day when they do something else, but. Well, it's a little weird right now.
The other so first I do want to say I genuinely believe that this was just an accidentally overlooked feature that they if it's not there, which I'm still not 100% convinced that I can't go in and find it myself. So wait to hear back on that. But also, if it is not there, this is a feature that they just were not. They somehow forgot to add. Like this is a bug in my complete opinion because you don't have this feature available for your non-HomeKit secure video cameras, which in theory Apple would treat as less than, which I'm not saying they do, but in theory because they aren't giving as much integration, then you treat them as less than. And then the ones that they treat as more than doesn't have this feature, that makes no sense. So this is a bug or it's just tucked away in a different place.
I don't know. That sounds pretty Apple to me. The fancier version actually is more limited in some way.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. It's got Pro in the title, so it's more limited.
They wouldn't like you to believe that, but it's probably
There's
true.
no SD card slot in it.
Gotta get that.
So Abode, which I always read as Adobe the first time.
I know. That's what I was going to say. It's like...
This is pretty neat because Abode has been around for a while. Abode wants to kind of deck out your smart home with.
I think people might know IOTA, the name of the products. I think.
Yeah. That's probably a good point. And so they've got like a whole system of products. The idea is that you can secure your home with their security system. So you get alarms, you get motion sensors, you get door sensors, and you get window sensors. And they all are working in concert to provide you with security for your home. It's like ADT, but you're not wrapped up in a weird contract and dealing with that nightmare of a system. And they've announced that they have HomeKit support. And of course, that also lets you control and access other products that are, because the way that Abode works is think of it like Philips Hue, where you have a system of products that all communicate with a singular bridge that is the center of the Philips Hue smart home. So that bridge connects to your router, and you on your app talk to the light to tell it to turn on. That is sent to the router, which sends it to the bridge, and the bridge is the thing that communicates with all of the lights or products that you have in your home. So it's the bridge that is the HomeKit-enabled device. They're now doing this with, or Abode does this as well. It is a bridge that sort of communicates with everything, and so its products, like I said, the window and door sensors, which they've got all sorts of windows and door sensors, which is pretty cool, including vibration glass sensors, which is pretty neat, acoustic and vibration versions.
For your dogs.
Yeah.
As if it's too loud, the sound can go on.
Yeah, exactly. They've got cameras, they've got motion sensors, but they also have water leak sensors, which in some areas of the country are very important. Yeah. They've got a smoke alarm as well. And so, many of these devices can then connect to the bridge and be used as part of the platform. So the IOTA all-in-one security kit that they have available, the least expensive version is $189 and gets you a camera / alarm and some door and window sensors, and then a little chirp chirp fob to sort of enable and disable the system. But again, you can just use HomeKit stuff to do that as well. So,
and this is just good to like see a company promise HomeKit and then actually deliver it, and not just leave their users for a few years.
Cough, August, smart lock, cough, cough, hack, cough. Can we take a screenshot of this face that I can just send?
Ooh,
to August.
Look at that eyebrow in those.
Thank you.
I totally want my gifts of that.
Yeah, we're going to have to save that one for sure. So I could just send it to August Smart Lock support without any preamble and see if they know what I'm talking about. Because I've had words with them before, so they might know this visage, and they'll be like, "Oh God, he's talking about how we offered. So we said we were going to do this, and we still to this day have not offered it. It's for the doorbell cam in particular. They do have HomeKit support for other things.
Yeah. So I have two other points. One, Abode titles their brand name in lowercase, so these quotes are really confusing because they're like, it's in these quotes they're like, "We hope you enjoyed Abode," but it's like, what? I thought they were referring to their house. But
that was it.
No, sorry. I think the other I really liked. I actually did just blank a little bit because I'm looking at my screen now. I'm just glad that like these types of. Oh yeah, it does seem like we've been covering tons of HomeKit news since we started, and I do want to like note that this hasn't been the case since before this show started. Like it does seem like tons of HomeKit news has been coming the last 3 months, and before that was like
dry,
barely a peep. So just to note that it is like, this does seem like I didn't even really know about this company, and I feel like there's a lot that people who were in the Apple ecosystem and not necessarily interested in Echo or Google Assistant like haven't even heard of these companies. And so it is like, it's nice to see more brands than just like the limited, like you could go to Apple's website and see every HomeKit compatible device before, and it was like, this is it. Like I've always been slightly like, what else is there with the smart home stuff? And it seems now it's actually like really filling out, which is nice to see.
I agree. Yeah. And plus we also continue to have a crud ton of other news that exists out there. So, and I think too, for folks asking, this is the reason that we started doing this show at the time that we started doing this, as opposed to as a person who's been digging into the smart home for years now, I've always wanted to be able to do a smart home show, and it just has not been, in my opinion, the right time for it until now. We finally are at that place where it is getting to be an everyday user type of thing. And this is
Yeah.
not just smart home stuff. This is just smart tech in general. Like more and more people are wearing wearable devices on their hands, on their arms than ever before. People are interested in paying attention to what you can do with your car other than just drive it around and get from place to place. And any number of other sort of internet connected tomfoolery that we gain access to is really, really finally taking off. Not to mention, as we often do talk about, the voice assistants, which voice first computing is huge right now.
I'm curious. It will be interesting, especially since this is going out just before Black Friday and then the Christmas season or holiday season, depending on your preferences, is both like this is the best time ever to buy smart tech, and but also simultaneously there's probably like the biggest backlash against companies listening into your home and stuff like that.
That's
so
true.
It will be interesting to see how it kind of goes this season. But that is, at least for building a system that is secure for yourself, there's still a lot of opportunities, which is great.
That is a really good point that I had not considered. The fact that we're really more aware, privacy-wise, of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel like we should explore that in a future episode more.
Absolutely, we will. I think so. Very cool. Sonos has acquired a voice assistant startup, but it is not taking on Cortana. It is not taking on the Google Assistant. It's not taking on Siri, or so the company claims. This, I think, again, I know we say this a lot, but a system, a virtual assistant agnostic device is better than sort of locking into one platform. So if Sonos is just looking at a better way to provide voice first control of its Sonos smart speakers, then I'm all on board. Why did it need to, it probably spent so much time trying to make sure that it could integrate with the Google Assistant and with ALEXA that it was like, what would be great is if we just didn't really have to worry about those ones at all. And all you do is say, hey, it's time for music. And I don't need to worry about which thing I'm talking to. That's what I want.
That makes sense. I even now I'm just thinking about the headline we talked about a couple weeks ago of like home builders not wanting to include Nest stuff now because it's tied to Google Assistant. And it is like, I probably didn't invest in a Sonos system because I didn't want to have to use it with Amazon's assistant. And it's like, I just want to use my speakers. I don't want to like switch assistants. And that is like an interesting, obviously that's like the point of lock-in with all of these, but it is like, we'll probably get to more and more places where your purchase decisions are dictated based off of some decision you made about which assistant you wanted to use like 3 years ago.
Right.
And so having sort of agnostic, but also smart still, not just like, we're just not going to do anything and just be a speaker. It's like they're still doing voice detail. So that is interesting. I hope there's like more of that, or maybe I have no idea. Just like they make it not just only Sonos, like just a general agnostic one that's not about the assistant skills, but just about voice recognition and completing the basic tasks on there.
Yeah.
I was going to say also, the executive went on to suggest privacy was a major element of the upcoming integration. That is good thing to know.
People are thinking about it. And I love that. I love that we have, we are currently in the process of realizing that media literacy and tech literacy are both incredibly important going forward. And any effort to make those more front of mind for folks, I will always hurrah and huzzah. Let's go ahead and move on to our projects for the week. Let's start with you, Matthew. You've been playing around with the
Logi Pop. I wrote down Logitech, but I forgot
it's just
their
Logi.
super cool millennial youth brand is Logi now instead. But I used to. So these are just little buttons, and they basically make a little popping sound, like you're like tapping the top of a Snapple lid or something like that. Yeah, exactly.
But there's no witty quote on the bottom of it for some reason.
just tear off the thing underneath, like the sticker underneath.
Oh no, it says do not remove. Oops.
So and again, I was referencing this before. It's a little bit of a weird product because it's actually worse when you add it to HomeKit, because
it is
when you use the probably the Logi app, I don't remember exactly, but when you use their app, you can use it as, in general, you can do a single press, 2 presses, or a long press on the product and have it just like trigger a HomeKit scene or do an advanced home shortcut type of thing. I'm pretty sure Federico is using his for time tracking, so he can just press the HomeKit button and do that. But my big thing that I wanted to do with it is in general, I've been trying to sleep better and also like have a better morning routine. So I don't want to look at my phone before I go to bed or when I wake up. And
nice.
It's like, we do have bulbs, like smart bulbs in the bedroom so that we can control that. And we have a Wi-Fi outlet for the sound machine to turn on so that it does like white noise when we go to sleep.
Okay.
I was thinking about that with your dogs. Have you ever done any like white noise might not be as good as classical does sound? Yeah,
there's a little bit more dynamism to classical, which I have multiple theories, but it's probably me just anthropomorphizing my animals. So who knows? But yeah, I think white noise, pink noise, brown noise are all too constant, too consistent.
Have you heard of Endel? Did we talk about that on this show?
I don't know if we talked about it on this show, but I've talked a lot. I love Endel. Yeah,
I actually
great.
Talked to the founder because I was like, I want you to build shortcuts, and he's like, what do you want? Because you've asked me this like 15 times already.
You sent me a packet that had a DVD in it that when I put it in was just you recording a recording of you saying you wanted shortcuts. Yeah,
basically. But so yes, I was going to say I wish I could have something like that play after at night. But so instead of setting it up through HomeKit, when you do that, the single press, double press, and long press, those are the only options. Mm-hmm. But when you just use their app, what you can do is have the single press be like on, but if I press it again, it turns off. You know what? Now that I just think about it, I could probably get around this with shortcuts because now there's scripting actions. So maybe I'll have to.
But
of course, I realize this live.
It still requires a lot of work. Versus just
you
using
would have to know
app.
How to do the logic, which for someone like me is like, sure, totally. But then pretty much everybody else in the world, except for like 20 other people, don't use Siri shortcut scripting right now. So, but maybe I'll do a little tutorial.
Yeah, maybe you should, because I'm like, there have been a few things where I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
Although I think I did it right. When I sent you that one, you're like, oh yeah, but you can just do that in the if statement. And I was like, yeah, that's what I tried first.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting though, is it's like I would want to mess around with this, and it would just be nice if Apple's native HomeKit support featured this. But basically, so the way that I have it now is I think a single press will turn off the lights and then turn on the Wemo smart outlets. And I had to go through if this then that because it doesn't actually work with it. So I like set up Logitech's app with the Wemo app, and then in the Logitech app now there's just like an if as you say it, if this then that little action step there. So it's like a single press will turn off the bedroom lights and turn on the sound machine. A double press will turn on the lights and turn off the sound machine for the morning, and then the long press turns on the bathroom and off again.
Nice.
So it's basically like now I can leave my phone in my office here next to me and then go to bed, because I've tried to do it with my watch, but then like I usually would take off the watch, or that sound wakes up my girlfriend. And so I take off my watch before I get in the bedroom, but then I have to turn off all the lights still. And I was like, how do I...
Such a light sleeper.
It's like, how do I control my smart house without actually using any device or my voice? Mm-hmm. It is like, I think these little button type things are good solutions for that.
Yeah, I've been how do I put it? a smart button evangelist for quite some time because of this reason. This is the way to bridge, I think, the gap between those of us who are, well, I'm just going to make my home very, very smart and use my voice for everything, and I'll, do the rest with my phone. Well, some people just want to be able to walk to a wall and use a switch that they've used since they were born to turn on and off lights, because that's the process that we have in our heads. And this device on the wall is a way to do that. It is a place that anybody can go. And I found myself using those more than anything else in the end. There's the Hue dimmer switch, the Philips Hue dimmer switch that has 4 buttons. And each of those buttons can be programmed to do something within HomeKit, which is fantastic. And I used those with my smart home. Each of the 4 was equivalent to a certain scene, and would, turn just these lights on, or just these lights off. You get, people get it.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, you got the Logi Pop, you went into the Logi Pop app and you connected it to Waymo, and then you also did IFTTT, and then you got all of those connected to be able to do it. How often does it fail, and how long does it take? Have you seen complete success, and how long does it actually take to go through the process?
I haven't actually seen it fail yet, but it definitely does take a second. The lights will turn on, and then maybe almost a second later, the sound machine turns off. So it is a little odd. I've been doing smart home stuff for 2 years maybe, and that's never been the case where there was actually a delay on something. So that is definitely not ideal, I'd say, but honestly, it's fine at the same
that's
time.
Not horrible.
It's not for something like that. That's not. I think turning on the overhead lights in the hallway is something that I would never want delayed. That was one thing that always drove me crazy. Sorry, Mom and Dad, if you're listening, but they put those lights in the hallway at their house that take a while to heat up. And I was like, this is the stupidest thing for the hallway, because I want the lights now, not 5 minutes after I'm already in my bedroom.
Right.
I need to be able to see currently. So that, I don't know, the delay thing seems fine though.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I'm honestly impressed, because we've talked before, for folks who are just getting into this, that the recommendation I give is to reduce the amount of interconnections between you and the automation that you want to do. Because if you have too many of those connections, it adds time, and then it also adds points of failure. And I don't want points of failure as much as I possibly can, because if I can't trust a thing to work this time, but know that the thing can work next time or has worked before, that's one thing. But if you're trying to sell this to other people, and by sell it, I mean sell it to your partner who lives in the home as well, sometimes it can be one failure, and suddenly that person does not trust that anymore. And so then, no one should feel uncomfortable living in their own home because they either feel like they can't control their own home, or they feel like it is an unreliable way of controlling the home, or what have you. I think that's kind of a bummer.
Their partner is the unreliable.
Or you get in trouble because the smart home stuff isn't working, which I know is a thing for Leo a lot of the time. He's got smart stuff, and when it doesn't work, then people get mad.
It's like, dang it, I just want to do the thing.
All I want to do is just walk into the living room and flip a switch on for the light, and that light comes on. But instead, I'm having to shout across. Yeah, that's also, there's an argument to be made that you've designed it improperly if that's the case. But my point is, that is a great reason to try and reduce the interconnectivity. And then also, whenever you can, keep that stuff on your local network. Pushing it off to a server, it can work, and that's how ALEXA, a non-pro ALEXA device, and the Google Assistant most often does the stuff that it does. But with those, sending it off to a server, it's got to take time to do that, and then come back and make the controls happen. So
I think it does speak to how fast even Google Assistant and my Echo, maybe I'm going to admit that maybe I would have some Apple bias and assume that for some reason those aren't as fast, but those I've never had any delay either. So I do think if this and that is it makes sense. It has to call their web service and go back down to your product a little bit longer than, or even just like detect that the trigger has been activated type of thing. But it seems like pretty reliable, and especially if you can't connect it, if this and that is a great way to do that. And I actually don't even really use it a whole lot. So I was like pleasantly, I don't know, not surprised, but just like, oh yeah, of course, all of this works with if this and that, which does show how reliable that is, at least that it is at back end. Maybe it takes a second sometimes, but it's all there. And that is like, I think I definitely underappreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not saying absolutely you underappreciate it. I'm saying absolutely I agree that folks underappreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. Come on, man. Gosh.
And especially, so you were talking about the bathroom or your remote. I have one of those in the bathroom also for the same reason. It's like, I want light immediately, but that one is also not set up through HomeKit because I had the same issue, or maybe I just didn't want to like have to set scenes for every button because those buttons say on, off, and then like brighter, lower.
Yeah.
And so I just used that default of on and off and being able to turn it down and up, because I think that was like, that's one thing that I feel like often doesn't get said a whole lot, is that having smart lights makes them all dimmer lights. And that is like something that's really nice. Usually you can't control that in the bathroom, for example. And at like, if I go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I can set the bathroom lights to 1% and it doesn't shine under the door and into the bedroom or something.
Like not only that, but it also makes it so your pupils aren't readjusting. So then you trip over the bed whenever you go back into the bedroom because you can't see, unless you do like a pirate. And that's what I would do in a home that doesn't have a dimmer light. I just keep one eye closed. So there's a pro tip for you out there. If you're going to the restroom at night and you're going to be blasted by the lights in your bathroom, keep one eye closed. A lot of pirates that you see with their eye patches on, you think, oh, they were in a rapier accident. No, most of them actually still had sight with that eye. They kept their eye closed. They kept their eye covered so that they could use that eye at night immediately, or when they went below decks to be able to still see in their pirate ship. So if you keep one eye closed whenever you go to the restroom at night, then when you walk out, you've got one eye that's immediately available to see in the dark, and then the other one will eventually adjust.
I do wear a sleeping mask sometimes, so I'll have to do the pirate version and
just put it on one eye.
Show one eye.
But another pirate tip: get in an orange or a lemon or a lime at some point so you don't get scurvy. All right, let's talk about my project.
Pirate news you can use.
Coming up on Smart Tech today, it's pirate news you can use, but don't abuse.
Oh my God! Now I'm just imagining like a magnifying, like what are the
oh gosh,
I can't. Oh my God,
eyeglass? No, I don't know what it's called.
It's not a telescope, but like the single telescope thing, or just like Smart Tech for pirates.
Smart Tech. Oh yeah, that's kind of fun.
Adjustable peg leg.
Oh my God, yes. A fake a mechanized pirate, or mechanized parrot. I mean,
I feel like we have to move on before this gets too cringy.
because I'm about to start making parrot noises and then talking about I need oil.
What's the assistant name? Okay, kill it. Okay, what's your project?
My project is a mechanized parrot. No, it is the Philips Hue Play HDMI sync box, which is a big name for a very small product. It's also a big price for a very small product, but, and we'll talk a little bit about this if we have the time to. Essentially, the fact that I wish that Philips Hue would just slightly adjust its prices, because I guarantee if they just slightly adjusted their prices, they could get into way more people's pockets, because they have a lot of cool products. But every time I go there and I'm like, okay, I sort of value lights on, and I know I'm going a little bit off topic here, but I sort of value a smart light on its luminous output, its ability to brighten a space. And so an 800 lumen, so LifeX, for example, their bulbs, 800 lumen max, and they do multicolors, and they are good color ratings and things like that. That is a really good bulb for the price. And it provides, and the reason why is because, as you mentioned, it's that dimming ability. I can make everything underneath that 800 lumen max all the way up to 800 lumens. So you've got more range to work with there, but I want to be able to have it be that bright, because I personally do not like working in dark spaces, or even like living in dark spaces except when it's bedtime, or when, a movie's on or something like that. Every other time I want to be able to see everything in my space. And so with Hue, they have great bulbs and they have great accessories. But when I see that they've got this path lighting series that's waterproof and the lumen output is like 400 max, suddenly that thing seems very, the value is not there. And I suddenly can't see spending.
For the price.
Yeah, that precisely. I can't see spending $100 on something that is 3 tiny little bulbs that only put out, 200 lumens of light. That's a huge bummer to me. So
you got to get the price per lumen.
Yes. Listen, Philips Hue, work on your price per lumen. Mm-hmm. That is my prized Christmas dish I make every year.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bow and moving on. So the Play HDMI Sync box is this $230 box, which I should say Philips sent it to me as a review unit that I'm testing right now. So you can't fault me because I did not spend $230 on it. And it lets you sync your lights to the media that you are consuming, whether that be music or a video game or a movie. You plug your HDMI. So for example, I'll just talk about my setup in particular. Got my TV. I've got a sound bar and I've got an Apple TV. The sound bar is connected directly to the TV using the HDMI ARC plug, audio return channel. And the Apple TV via HDMI plugs into there are 4 slots, HDMI slots on the Play HDMI Sync box. So I plugged it into the first one. And then there is an output on the Philips Hue Play HDMI Sync box. And that plugs into the first HDMI slot on my television. So essentially the signal is getting passed through the sync box and then to the television. And that lets the sync box read the content that is coming out, the video content or music content or whatever that's coming out, and then send signals to the devices that you set up with it, the light devices that you set up with it throughout your home at no delay. So I've got...
So doesn't it technically delay everything, but syncs it up as it does that? So
it knows its own delay and uses that sort of buffer and make sure that it can do the proper syncing with whatever you're watching. So that's why you've got to pass it through instead of doing, I don't know, some sort of vision-based control. And that allowed me, so then there are these lights called the Philips Hue Play lights. And they're these kind of, if you're watching, then you can see that Matthew has a couple behind him. There's the one that's on his countertop that you can actually see. If you're not watching, it is a breadstick shaped device about the size of maybe a little bit bigger than an Olive Garden breadstick. It's been a long time since I've had one of those. And unfortunately, Philips Hue doesn't hand them out free with your meal like they do at Olive Garden, which is a bummer. You can get 2 of them for $130. Again, Philips Hue, work on your prices. I'm serious. You would get so many customers if you'd work on your prices. And these bulbs, they're great luminous output. They can be arranged so that they stand up or they sit down. And so I have them sitting on either side of my entertainment stand that they're sort of directing light up behind the television. And the idea here is that it almost makes your whole space, your whole whatever room you're in, it makes that whole space kind of an extension of your experience. And I thought, I was a little concerned that in doing so, it was going to be distracting.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about.
And I am a person, I've talked before, I've talked very openly about this. I was diagnosed with ADHD back in college, and that's something that, is a regular thing for me that I have to be aware of. And so I'm bringing that up in this moment to talk about the fact that I am particularly distractible. Squirrel. And so I would think that the lights would make me, that I'd be distracted by them.
Yeah, but too much.
Yeah, too much. But genuinely, and I should note too, you have controls over how extreme the light change is, how bright it is, and you can make those adjustments in the app that they have. Despite that, I found it to be a very excellent and engaging experience. I was watching the Star Wars films, and I'm talking, old school films, and it really added to the experience.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it was quite nice. And so I'm actually thinking about, because I have a Philips Hue light strip that I don't use because the Philips Hue light strip is the Philips Hue light strip is trash in comparison to some of the others that are out there. For the same price.
That's a burn. Yeah, just because it's expensive, or
it's too.
I have that one, so now I feel inadequate now.
Yeah, because I told you got to get the LifeX strip.
I have it.
Oh my God! Well, then you know what? No, I have all respect for you again. It's fine. You're not going to lose my respect if you have a Philips Hue light strip.
It changes that quickly.
I have one too. It's the fact that it can only output one color across the whole strip at a time. It can do all the colors, but only one across the whole thing, and it costs too much to only be able to do that. And so that's my beef with it. But I'm thinking about now adding that to my entertainment center, because I have not used it in a long time because it's trash in comparison to the LifeX version. So I might do that. I might bring out a few more Philips Hue color and white bulbs too to add in the living room. I genuinely have enjoyed it. Go ahead.
Would the white help? Don't they need to be color to be useful for this?
Yes, I said Philips Hue white and color. That's the name of the bulb that does the color version. Philips Hue white is just perfectly white. Philips Hue ambience is the one that does multiple color temperatures of white, and then Philips Hue white and color is the one that does ambience and color as well. So I want to bring a few of those into my living room maybe too, and test how that adds to the experience. So I've really been enjoying it, but can I justify, let's see, I don't do math, but my computer does. Can I justify $360
plus tax?
Yeah, $360 plus tax for a fancy light show while I'm watching movies?
Yeah, it's hard to, we were saying before the show, this seems like the type of thing that you could easily be seduced into buying if you're like redesigning your entire home theater system, where it's like you're already spending $3,000, and so like another $300 feels less. I mean, it is okay. Real quick, I guess before I get into that, does it do both? Does it like mix the colors because you have two lights?
That's what I should note. So.
Because that would be the downside of a light strip.
Watching, that's what I'm going to get to, because I don't know what it's going to do. I'm curious to see like how the light strip will do this, because when Yoda and Dooku, who I call Doo-Doo, were fighting, suddenly the play on the left was green and the play on the right was red.
Star Wars is a perfect one for that, the light versus dark.
Right? And so you could see, and the lights were kind of blending together in the middle. It was very cool and fun and nerdy. But with the light strip, I don't know what it's going to do. And the interesting thing is that when you set up an entertainment area, you can show not only where the light is in the space, you set up a literal like map of where the lights are in the space, but something that they've added that they didn't have originally is also height. And so you can say, this is a light that's in my ceiling, this is a light that's at TV level, or it's a light that's below TV level. So I'm thinking that if I put the light strip where I usually do, which is behind the entertainment center along the back of the entertainment center, and I say that it's below TV level, then it's probably going to do the color at the bottom of the screen. Is my thought. Or it may choose to do an average of the middle. I don't know yet, so I do need to try that and see, but I have to dig it out of the trash because it's
I assume it only works with their own
light
strip.
Correct.
That makes sense. That's logical, because it's not HomeKit.
It's all Philips Hue stuff.
Yeah.
But
so
I like that it doesn't interrupt your like those bulbs. Everything there is still controllable via HomeKit. You don't have to choose either or, and I like that.
Yeah. It's just like the synchronization part.
Yeah.
So that I see a little toggle. There's like use audio for effects too, which is kind of, does it like, if a explosion happens, does it get more red or something? Like,
so it's a different system. I assume you're talking about the app that you have on the Mac.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Actually, I'm wrong, because that's why I opened this up, was they do have the Philips Hue Sync for PC or Mac, which lets you synchronize whatever you're watching but it's only on your computer.
Correct.
And so
it's using the
like,
computer's processing to determine the color system and all that kind of stuff, and then blasting it out to the lights. Whereas with the Hue Sync, it uses that HDMI box to do this.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so it does not have as many settings, but you can. No,
yeah, it's saying for the PC, just use the app. Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
So there are 3 sync modes: video, music, and game, and then 4 intensities: subtle, moderate, high, and extreme. And then you can adjust the brightness.
So as a gaming nerd, Xbox for life, bro. But like
PC
one of the
gamer,
major,
man.
There is a major thing where if you play games, a lot of smart home stuff poses a lot of issues because you can't play a video game with a 1 second delay.
Right.
And that's why I'm curious how well this actually works with something like Xbox, because I can't tell. I mean, I guess because it reads HDMI, it's like instant or whatever.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know. I shouldn't say that it's 100% slowing things down, because I think that the point of getting a sync box is so that it can do a better, faster processing thing than what it was doing with the computer, where it's trying to communicate with the bridge and sort of make that all happen. So you know what? I'm going to have to invite you over with your Xbox, because this bro is not a gamer. You can connect it up and... Oh, no, you're coming to my house. You think I'm sending you that sync box? No. I'm kidding. Yeah, we should test that out and see, because I am curious how that all works as well. We should get to our last segment, though. And that, of course, is our feedback, our questions, and our picks of the week. So, Matthew, what is your pick of the week?
I just unintentionally transitioned to this, but this is an app that lets you play Xbox, but not on your smart home setup. So that's why I thought this was an interesting one to include, because I don't think of something like my iPad being part of my smart home, but this app is called OneCast, and it actually works for Android, iPad, iPhone, and Mac. So I'm not just doing only Apple stuff for once. But it basically acts as it turns on the streaming on your Xbox and then allows you to stream it to another display. And there is a tiny bit of lag, but basically I can play my Xbox One on my iPad. Like, I'm sitting in the same room as the Xbox using the controller paired to the Xbox still, but this lets you like play your full console games on a mobile device, like especially the phone or iPad or even a 5K iMac or something.
So you bring your controller with you and you play it on your iPad, or is this something that you could play how do you play it on a bus then? Because it need to be...
it's for home. Oh. It's just for not being like in front of the television set. So like
so if somebody else was watching TV.
Yeah, you can still play on your iPad and play a full console quality game, but just like, I mean, I don't think I would play like a fast-paced shooter game where in the last like 2 minutes of those games are usually crazy, like
you can play
super intense targeting or something.
Animal Crossing.
Yeah, but I was playing like Red Dead Redemption or the new Star Wars like Jedi game is like pretty awesome.
I love
those are also like, Red Dead is
I love
great.
Red Ned consumption. That's my favorite one.
It's basically Grand Theft Auto for cowboys, where you are just like running around in the Wild West.
Oh, and that actually does sound fun.
It's like one of the most amazing games ever. But it's a lot of those games you spend like honestly like hundreds of hours because they're just endless games. And I have to, especially I didn't buy a 60-inch TV. I bought like a 40-inch TV or like something like 42 or something. So the distance that I sit on my couch means that I like can't actually see what's happening in like small detail on those games. And so I literally have to like move my coffee table and put my chair and play games there. And I just don't like to. And so part of it is just like, I was trying to think of how do I optimize my smart home? It's like actually be able to play video games without tearing apart the furniture in the living room. So it's like, and it's a solid system. You can, if you have fast enough Wi-Fi, you can kick up the connection and it's like, I think it's full HD. So it's really impressive because
that is
my
very
brain
cool.
is like, I can't wait until one day when I have console games on the iPad, and it's like I can just do it right now, and it's
I'm
like
sorry,
20.
I am a subscriber to Apple Arcade, so I have my console games. JK, I know those aren't console games. No one come at me, please.
Oceanhorn is probably better than Zelda, I'd say. Like, no, not at all.
Can we edit that out? That's dangerous. Yeah, there was an explosion on screen just now, and that was the sound of a bunch of people breaking loose on the internet to come find you.
If you'd like to send us feedback, it's feedback at STT.
Thanks a lot.
No, wait, what is it? STT at twit.tv. There
It's
it is.
not that. It's Matthew Cassinelli at twitter.com or something like that. Now, tell me about pricing. What are we looking at here?
It's only $20. So like it's slightly high for an app. I'd say for a lot of people probably don't spend that much. But again,
for an app that works
to be
across
able to,
platforms,
it's like
lets you play it on all these systems, seems
turns
good to me.
any of your screens into a television setup. Yeah. And that's pretty solid to me. It's like we have all that's why it is like, I have these great screens. Why don't I use them for the things that I need screens for, unless it's just smartphone stuff? So
Cool.
I definitely recommend this.
So my app this week is the Philips Hue app for Android. So this is an app that's existed for a long time. Of course, it's free to download, but the thing that I really love about Android, one of my favorite things, I should say, about Android is the ability to customize the home screen in any number of ways. So on my Pixel 3, I switched from the OnePlus 7 Pro to the Pixel 3 when Leo came back from vacation and he upgraded to the 4. He gave me his 3 instead so that I could have the purest Google Android experience. Anywho, on that device, I really like the fact I've got like a calendar on my home screen. It's just there for me to see and scroll through and see what's up. And then there are lots of different little widgets that are available. So my second screen has like all of my different media streaming stuff. So I can go from there directly to start listening to a Pocket Cast app, and I can hit play and pause right there, or Audible and others. Anywho,
Nice.
But what I love about the Philips Hue app is that you can set up scenes that become widgets. So within the Philips Hue app, you can add lights to the scene and say, maybe I want an all on, all off button. And so one will turn on all of the Philips Hue lights in my home. One will turn off all of the Philips Hue lights in my home. I have one that's called Office, and then one that's called Living Room. And you tap it once to turn them on, you tap it again to turn them off, which is nice. It's got that logic built in. But they just become these little circles that are available as little buttons on the screen that I put them on. So, I swipe over and I've got access to those. And I quite like having that feature available. For me, it saves a little bit of time if I'm in that mood where I don't want to... mode where I don't want to use my voice for controlling this stuff, and I just want to quickly tap at it. It's quite nice to have that available. So that is my pick. It's a pretty quick one. I just think the Philips Hue app for Android is good, and particularly for the ability to add widgets.
Nice. That's good. Especially, oddly, my girlfriend only uses the Hue app and doesn't ever use HomeKit. I think she just kind of built the habits, and it's like, honestly, at a certain point, for at least until recently, it's been in effect the exact same thing, just UI wise. And I even personally benefited from it because I could arrange all of the icons in my home favorites just for what I wanted, because it didn't matter like what. I didn't have to think about her situation. So that the little widgets part does sound nice.
Yeah, very cool. Okay.
To piggyback off that real quick, you texted me this week because the Hue app
battery
for
case.
the little chunky guy. But the Hue app for iPhone also got updated so that supposedly it will stay in sync with the Home app, which is like, but also I just opened it. Your software is out of date. So it's not actually up to date now with my HomeKit stuff, because it did. I finally got it in sync, and then it renamed a bunch of my rooms and my lights. So like the living room, one light thought it was in a different room and wasn't turning on anymore. And I was like, I got so close, but yet so far.
I hate that. I hate that so much. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our feedback, and then it is time to say goodbye. So we got this question, actually, it came up today from Drew on Twitter. And Drew asks, with Black Friday coming up, I'd love some expert input. Currently use Apple TV at home, a Sonos system with ALEXA setup, but a 4-node Google Wi-Fi network. Which service should I go all in on for home control? Issues I'm considering are mainly privacy concerns, cost concerns, and overall smart home abilities. Matthew, you give your answer first, and then I will tell you why you're wrong. No, I'm kidding. And then I'll give mine.
I thought that was, in the pre-show, we had actually had opposite answers, where you were saying that you probably should just go for HomeKit.
Yes.
Because of the just overall integration. But I have a contrarian take, so I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, maybe I should start. So my advice, and this is advice that I've given since I was writing about smart home stuff at Mobile Nations, is given that you use an Apple TV at home, and given, and I don't know if this is the case, so you'll have to let me know, given that you are an iPhone user mainly.
I'm pretty sure he is. I do know Drew from the tweets.
Oh, well, there you go. So given those things are true, which Matthew tells me they are, I named my source. Sorry about that. No, given that those things are true, then I suggest, and have always suggested, that you go all in on HomeKit enabled devices. And the reason I say this is because of the different platforms that are available, supporting, and by the way, Drew says, yes, iPhone user. So that's, he's in the chat, by the way.
Nice.
Yes, given that you are an iPhone user and that all of those things sort of line up, when you go for HomeKit-enabled products, the chances are that they are going to already offer support for ALEXA. They'll be ALEXA enabled, and that they're also going to offer support for the Google Assistant. And that is because Apple's platform is the most difficult platform to support. And that's only because there are just a few more regulations that they have in place and some usability stuff that they put in place to make sure that folks can use it without there being a bunch of complications. So if the company's going to go as far as to spend the money and the resources on providing support for HomeKit-enabled devices, then they probably want to go ahead and knock those other two out because those are easier to get access to. So it's kind of like if you're going as far as getting access to Apple's marketing badge that says HomeKit-enabled product or works with Apple HomeKit, I think is the new way that they put it, then you've already hit those necessary regulations for the other two.
Yeah.
So having gone all in on HomeKit, if you decide down the line, well, now I want to switch to an ALEXA system, then you will be able to do so with the products that you have. There's also the fact that with HomeKit, and unlike ALEXA devices that do not offer like a Zigbee radio inside and and the Google Assistant, unlike those, with HomeKit, you are creating a local area network set of products that will work regardless of whether the wide area network is in play, if you are doing all of your setup and your system stuff in the Home app. That privacy concerns, that's a huge one. Basically, you're not accessing a bunch of different people's servers and sending your information there about how often you turn on and off the lights or any of that. For security concerns, it's, again, all on the local network. It's all encrypted this way and that way and double and 3 times over. I've read the white paper before and none of it made any sense to me other than to say, holy moly, it's very secure. And then reliability, this thing that we've been talking about, the fact that it's all happening locally, so you're not worried about server delays and things like that. So that's my advice.
He does have cost concerns in there.
Yes, that's the next thing. So then you mentioned, so we got privacy concerns, we got overall smart home abilities, because there are apps that even provide more options. If you don't just want to use the Home app, there are other apps that add even more to the smart home abilities. But cost concerns, yes, the products that Apple supports are going to cost more because, again, they're spending the resources. And then also Apple requires a certain level of product quality for these HomeKit-enabled products, because essentially it looks like Apple is endorsing the product whenever you see works with Apple HomeKit on the side. And so they make that very clear that the product has to match a certain quality and all those kinds of things. So there aren't a lot of corners that you can cut. I will say that there's one company called KooGeek, KOOGEEK, and they make some pretty cool switches and products that are well priced, but work with Apple HomeKit. And I have been a happy KooGeek user for a while, particularly for their in-wall switches versus the plugs and things like that. But the plugs have worked fine too. I have a few of those. So if cost is a concern, then you may be wanting to look at the other ones. But if long-term cost is a concern, then you may be changing out the other ones time and time again when they fail or when you realize that it's not working how you want it to. So it's just kind of like an upfront versus down the road cost and what's going to work locally versus wide. But Matthew brought up a good point as we were discussing this question before the show, where he bah humbugged me. So what's going on?
I mean, I think I was slightly saying that one of the odd things that we're seeing now is that some apps are coming out with Siri shortcuts support for their smart home stuff, but not actually supporting HomeKit. And I'd have to assume that whoever is like the privacy manager on Apple's HomeKit team is like, dang you shortcuts team, because it's like that is sort of a route around for people. And I do think that if people are super invested in the Amazon, or I wouldn't want to say if you're invested in the Amazon ecosystem, but I do think that seems like a viable alternative that you don't necessarily need to get into HomeKit because of, I mean, the part where he already has Apple TV, I think might nudge it in that direction because Amazon Fire stuff is generally affordable, but I think most people don't want to like just throw away the thing they already purchased. But I was saying you could probably get away with using the Apple TV shortcuts integration in order to like use smart home stuff with the Apple TV. And actually, I mean, I think the shortcuts integration can do more than what you can tell Siri to do with it, which is very stupid. It's like I can have the shortcut open an app on the Apple TV, but if I say open Netflix on the Apple TV to my HomePod, it won't do it. Even though I can build a shortcut to do the exact same thing. So he also has the I think an interesting question is the Google Wi-Fi network. I almost think that doesn't matter. I'm not totally sure because it's just Wi-Fi. At a certain point, whatever you put on top of that doesn't, like, it might integrate better if you want to tell your Google Assistant to turn off the Wi-Fi. You might be, or like set those like profile things. That might be a little bit better, but I don't know if that's worth switching a system to it.
That one option there.
And it's like, even he has a Sonos, so he probably didn't even think of this when he asked, but you might not even need to use the Amazon Assistant with that now. So it's like, I think this is a solid point because it is like you can kind of be really in the middle of all of these types of things. I would say though, it is interesting that it has seemed like in the last year, Nest stuff has shifted out of the recommendation for anybody because it is now, it's very Google. You have to want to use the Google stuff and it will never work with HomeKit, I assume. So
I don't see it.
That kind of type of thing is a little bit limiting.
A little bit of a bummer.
And even, I mean, just for like smart home abilities is I'm going to be the first person to tell you that you can do tons of stuff with Siri shortcuts, but also if you don't have the time to do that or don't want to figure out any of that stuff, at least right now, it is behind Amazon's, just in terms of like the breadth of stuff that you could do with it. But I think if I do see, particularly since he does have an iPhone, I think that makes a difference that something like shortcuts could tie a lot of this stuff together. So I think it's, the other thing we didn't mention, there's so much. It is like,
but we're running out of time, so you got to tell it to us fast.
The one thing we didn't mention with the Sonos updates is that their IKEA speakers are selling really well, supposedly, and those are AirPlay 2 enabled. So I think that's the big thing, is getting an AirPlay 2 enabled Sonos so that you can then bring that into a system like HomeKit. So I do think specifically for Drew, I'm just going to say HomeKit because I also want him to, because he follows me on Twitter and is like all about that shortcut stuff. But I don't think it's like, I don't think you would have to. And like you said, if you change your mind later, I don't think you're going to be left in the dust.
Right.
Whereas if you chose Nest and then change your mind, you probably will be a little bit, which is
a double bummer because Drew says in the chat, I have 4 Nest cameras and the Nest Hello thermostat.
He should have told us that. Oh man. I mean, yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe I'll talk to Drew and see if we can figure something out, because there might be some more interesting stuff to do, like it might be a little convoluted, but there could be a system that works.
Hoobs, maybe. I can't remember. Hoobs did not work very well with Nest. So we'll see. I need to play with that because I have one Nest cam. I don't have all the stuff. But folks, we are out of time for today. If you have questions, you can tweet at us. That's a good way to get your question answered on the show. But you can also email us, stt@twit.tv. You can send audio if you want. I'm not going to say video because not yet. But yeah, if you have questions that you want to send in via audio, you can do that. You can also tune in live. We record the show live every Monday, or most Mondays at least, at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 2300 UTC. So you can head to twit.tv/live or join us on twitch.tv/twit to check or tune in live and hang out with us if you'd like. Matthew Cassinelli, if folks want to follow your work online or get in touch with you, where do they do that?
This week, I recommend going to MatthewCassinelli.com and checking out, I did a write-up of how to set HomePod to only talk at 10% volume at night. So I just wanted to make sure anybody could have a simple checklist and do this, because it's amazing so far. I've been really loving not having it shout back at me at night.
That is nice. That is very nice. If you want to follow me online, I'm at Mikah Sargent on pretty much all of the social media platforms. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, of course. That's at twit.tv/STT. You head there and we've got links to all of the different places you can subscribe, including that beautiful, simple RSS feed. All right, Matthew, it's time to say goodnight to all of your smart assistants.
Good night, Sonos.
Very good. Very good.